Welcome to Leaders of Tomorrow, ETNA's special initiative that celebrates the undying entrepreneurial spirit of micro, small and medium enterprises. Here's what we have lined up for you then on the show today. On our Insights segment, we feature a conversation with Gazonga, the online ticketing marketplace. And on Bright Sparks tonight, we're featuring Jumbo King. So let's get started then right away with our Insight conversation. Gazonga was founded in 2007 with a focus on tickets for sporting events, and while cricket-related sales still constitutes a bulk of its revenues, the online ticketing major is now looking at sports franchises and music concerts amongst others. The Mumbai-based company looking at expanding its global footprint as well. I caught up with its co-founder and CEO Neetu Bhatia. Take a listen. I want to kick this conversation off by asking you where the name, and what does the name in fact, Gazonga mean?
If you ask one of our advisory board members, Prahlad Kakkar, who I'm sure you've heard his name, he would go on air saying it's an African mating call. We tried to keep him away, of course, from the air as far as the name is concerned, but it was something that, as a team, when we put the whole concept together, decided that instead of having a name which has the word ticket or a verb as to what it is that you're going to do or what the customer is going to do, we make it something that's unique. Once people hear about it, it kind of sticks in their heads and they don't forget it. That was, of course, from a brand recall and a branding perspective, but also what we have always wanted to do and always endeavored to do is to have the name become a customer service experience, not just I'm here to get my ticket and that's it. When I go to Gazonga, I can expect a certain level of service, I can expect a certain level of product, and I can expect a certain level of, stickiness as far as the customer is concerned. So those are things that we had in mind when we set it up. And yes, initially it was a bit of a challenge trying to get people to understand what Gazonga actually did. So we, of course, the tagline used to be Gazonga jumped the queue at the time when we started. And of course, over time, it's sort of gone on to become Gazonga the big ticket.
So you've been in existence for 9 years. How has the market as far as ticketing and e-ticketing really changed?
The market per se, as far as e-ticketing goes for sports and entertainment, did not exist before Gazonga did. So my co-founders and I, when we moved back from the US to come back to India to set up Gazonga, and the idea we thought was really exciting. There was a huge consumer need and a gap that wasn't being filled in the marketplace. And we thought that we should move back to India, quit our careers, not our jobs, mind you, back in the US and come back and do this back home in India. It's changed dramatically. It's taken time. You mentioned 9 years. It's actually time flies. The first few years was all about evangelizing the concept, getting people to understand what it means to buy. I mean, we're talking about a time when we arrived and people were so loath to using their credit cards, and debit cards as a payment mechanism online didn't even exist. Net banking did not exist. So we've worked with banking partners, we've worked with payment gateway providers, we've worked with customers. So as you can imagine, Gazonga sits in the middle of supply and demand. So we help to sell tickets of certain promoters of events and so on and so forth to customers. So we had to evangelize and educate both sides of the demand and supply chain. And so it's taken a bit to do that, but today, of course, it's dramatically changed, and all people care about is, how do I get my tickets online? So it's changed completely, but it's still a bit ways to go. I wouldn't say it's a particular market or a demographic that works one way or another. It depends on the kind of supply you have, and it depends on the kind of content. If it's cricket, it doesn't matter; it'll get snapped up. If it's perhaps something else, it might take a bit longer to get snapped up. But that said, the market has definitely changed dramatically.
So you're saying if it is something else, you've moved beyond just sporting events to a lot of other verticals as well. Just talk to us about what else now you cover.
So sports and entertainment was what we started with, and we've gone on from there to pretty much working with venues, amusement parks, people that have inventory that sells 365 days of the year. We're now, in fact, talking anything that is basically paid access. So simply put, even a Jaipur Literature Festival. You're talking about any type of event that requires a structured entry process that requires, paid or otherwise, paid or free, whatever it is. I mean, the point is, if a client or a customer requires a smoother access control process, that's sort of where we play. That's the entire sort of gamut of what we do.
I want to take a slightly bigger picture and ask you what advice you would have for the viewers of our show in terms of starting out. What were some of the biggest challenges that you faced along the way, and therefore what advice would you have for our viewers?
Well, I think one of the pieces of advice is essentially you need to have staying power. You need to be patient. You need to be building what you can't be sort of taken in by what's generally going on around you. You need to be, of course, aware of what's going on around you, but you can't be sort of trying to build your business around what the latest flavor of the day or the trend of the day is. You need to focus, if you, to the extent you have conviction in what you've begun, in the idea that you have, in the business that you've begun, without which you wouldn't have begun anyway to begin with. So you start with that conviction, but you stay with it and have the staying power. If you do believe that you will work on building a high growth, profitable, sustainable business that's going to drive shareholder return at the end of the day, you must just stick to the knitting and focus on what it is that you're doing.
A lot of the entrepreneurs who speak to us, and I know this is a question that's asked a lot, and the opinions on it are very varied. That of gender, has that been an asset or a challenge for you?
That's a good question. I mean, it could be. I've always sort of looked at it as I've sort of been a bit gender neutral in that sense, where if I walk in and if I'm as good as the next guy, I should be considered or taken as seriously as anyone else. So I wouldn't want to use the gender angle as either an asset or a liability. That being said, that cannot always be said about the person or people sitting across the table. So you've got to take it as it comes on a case-by-case basis. If there is certain issues that people might have, you've got to deal with it and let them know that you're, like I said, as good as the next guy. But at the same time, to the extent people feel that you bring a different angle to the whole aspect of doing business with them because of your gender, so be it. So I think it's a matter of, it varies from case to case. But in my entire career, both as an entrepreneur as well as prior to that as an investment banker, I've never really faced that. Like I've heard people talk about various things that might come in the way, but my advice to on such matters is that don't consider yourself to be any different. If you are good at what you do and your product is as good as you say it is, then just be confident and try and win the business or work on winning the business that way. Nothing else matters at the end of the day.
You've co-founded this company along with your brother and your best friend. But the reason I bring it up is because we get a lot of feedback from MSMEs who ask us, how do you A, go about managing relationships, and B, funding is a challenge, because when banks look at family-run businesses, apparently they're a little wary. So have you faced that, and what advice would you give our viewers?
We raised our first round of venture capital back when we started, and this was from venture funds based in the US. And Akash, my brother, and I, and my best friend Arpita, who's the chief operating officer of the company, we got together first as professionals, not as family or friends. It was more, I used to be an investment banker. Akash used to be in Silicon Valley. He was doing a lot of tech-related work there. Arpita was a senior management consultant based out of New York. So we first got together as professionals because each of us brought a set of skills to the table that worked really well in putting a startup together. So the rest of the relationships sort of came afterwards. So from that perspective, we've never really faced this whole family business issue point that sort of comes up or may come up. But that being said, again, if you are running it professionally and each one is bringing a set of skills to the table that's driving value to the business, I don't think, hopefully, funding sources shouldn't be, should in fact consider that a source of strength rather than a source of being wary on such counts. I think it brings a lot of if you are professionals first and family next, I think it could actually bring a lot more value to the table because you understand what they might be thinking, you understand how they're sort of approaching a certain set of problems, and that can come in really handy.
Another, sort of a feedback that we get from our viewers is that the regulatory environment, particularly for those in the e-commerce space, is very tight at this point. What advice would you have again for our viewers in terms of how to really manage that? Whether it's policy, whether it's legal, because as MSMEs, they say they're spending a lot of their time, a lot of their effort, and a lot of money in just meeting these regulatory concerns.
Right. Well, you've got to be, to the extent you have to comply with certain regulatory norms, you have to comply with those norms. Of course, my advice would be have a very strong legal team, both either internal or external counsel that you might have. We make it a point to have both to make sure that people understand the business from the inside and also people understand the business and the environment outside. So have a strong legal team for sure. That's the most fundamental thing that I would say any business should have. A strong legal, a strong finance and accounting, and a strong, in India specifically, a company secretarial sort of role that somebody plays to make sure that you are checking the boxes where it's needed as it relates to your filings and everything else. I am, in fact, I used to be an investment banker for several years. I am amazed with what private companies in India actually need to comply with, which is not what the whole idea that you're a private company it's almost as if you're complying with public company regulatory needs in India. But it is what it is, and you've just got to make sure you've got a strong team that's keeping you in check there and making sure that all your filings are done. But that being said, also, how do you get around this? I think you just need to bandy together with a bunch of other people, like-minded people, and form groups and pressure groups, and work on consultative sort of engagements with the various ministries to the extent that is required, and make sure that they understand where you're coming from and why certain things have to be done and why certain things shouldn't be done.
I want to go back to my previous question in terms of fundraising. Where are you in terms of your own fundraising journey?
We raised our first round back when we started. It was a Series A round, typical Silicon Valley round, and we put our stuff on a ship and moved back to India. Ever since, we've been very, very prudent in how we've managed our capital needs. In fact, in a business such as ours, which is ticketing, it should be a high growth, cash flowing business all the time. We've been able to first focus on ensuring that unit profitability is reached and profitability, and we're building the product and building the service and building the business to be a sustainable, profitable business in the long run. And as a result, we've been profitable now for a couple of years, and we've not had the need to go out there and raise more capital. However, given the kind of opportunities we see in front of us today, we've built a product that's world class and can take on some of the biggest behemoths as it relates to ticketing around the world. In fact, we ended up being runners up in the bid for the Rio Olympics ticketing contract, which is just about getting underway. From that perspective, what we see ahead of us is opportunity not just in India, but we see this opportunity in a typical Make in India concept of a product that's been built in India that is world-class and is going to be is already ticketing in the US, it's ticketing in the Caribbean, it's ticketing in Australia, it's ticketing in the UAE, and it's taking business away from some of these larger competitors. So we're very excited about what we have in front of us, and as a result, we might look to go out there and raise another round of growth capital because it'll help us get to these markets much, much quicker.
Okay. When it comes to expansion, would you advise that MSMEs and startups look at organic or inorganic, or is that really a function of where you are in your business life cycle?
It really depends on the situation. We've so far grown organically. But at the same time, at various points in time, we have considered various acquisition sort of prospects and things that might help us get there. It's always been, you always go through the situation of buy versus build. I mean, do I buy this, or can I build it myself quickly enough to be, not having to pay a premium to do that? So it's that standard process. You go through that rigorous exercise, and once you know what you're doing, you could pick one of the two paths.
Okay, a quick last word. What are the next, say, 5 years looking like for you?
They're looking great. They're looking brilliant. We're really excited about the kind of growth opportunities we have both in India as well as outside of India in some of the key markets that I mentioned. I think where people are really starting to take notice of the product that we've built up at the highest levels, and so as a result of which we're extremely excited. And I think hopefully the next 5 years, we get to be spoken as one of the top 2 or 3 ticketing companies in the world.
Let's take a quick break. On the other side, we'll feature a company that's looking at becoming the king of vada pavs. Just stay tuned. Welcome back with us here on Leaders of Tomorrow. On Bright Sparks tonight, we're featuring Jumbo King. What's the first thing that comes to mind when someone says Mumbai? I'm willing to bet it is street food, and the humble vada pav is the most ubiquitous with this city. Even 5-star hotels, in fact, have it on their menu. So what makes Jumbo King stand out then? Vidya Bharti makes her debut with this story. Take a look.
In a fast-paced city like Mumbai, one has absolutely no time for food. Everyone is always in a hurry, either to catch the next local train or to stop the first Kali Pili they come across. In a city like this, the vada pav comes to your rescue. One man who saw potential in this local street food was Dheeraj Gupta. In spite of facing a lot of criticism from his family and friends, he managed to start his business in 2001. Selling 20% larger vada pavs, Dheeraj deemed it fit to name his company Jumbo King. Dheeraj, tell us about your journey of setting up a company like Jumbo King.
Well, I guess so. Jumbo King was the second product where learning from the mistakes in the first project. I think we got a lot of the elements right in the sense we took what was already there in the market and eventually started peeling off the layers one by one, improving the product and working backwards, and then ensuring that we at some point strike the right chord with the consumer as well as draw them towards a product which at that time they may not have felt the need for, but it started making sense to them.
So Dheeraj, while everybody else was setting up a burger joint, you chose vada pav. Tell us the story behind it.
We did market research and we found that Mumbai consumes about 20 lakh units of vada pav a day, which is a very, very large number if you convert it into what it consumes in a month or over a year. And the entire category was completely unorganized. So it was, I feel, one of the single largest branding opportunities which was there. Waiting for someone to take it up.
The McDonald's model is something you abide by when it comes to expansion strategies. Tell us why you chose the McDonald's way.
I think what we are doing is learning from these best practices and trying to apply it onto an Indian product. And the idea is to make the next $1 billion, the first $1 billion Indian food product company, which would get branded and then go multinational. And I think one such brand getting created will give Indian brands and Indian food a lot of confidence, self-belief that we can also get there. So you may call it copying, or you may call it learning from the brands, because they have made their mistakes, and I think we should make new ones, not repeat the same ones.
From selling vada pavs for a meager 5 rupees in 2001. Today, Jumbo King has opened over 100 franchise outlets across 14 cities in India. It has become a favorite among commuters, students and office-going people.
Vada pav is something which is unique to Mumbai only, and I think it is something which is every Mumbaikar will have in his life.
Vada pav is an Indian burger. Better way of eating vada pav here?
Simplistic.
Awesome.
Poor man's burger.
Wasn't it a risky decision to take up vada pav as a single food product for your company?
We felt that the Indian brands, they are trying to do everything under one roof. So the thought process was, if a family comes in, the father is going to eat something different, the mother will want something different, the kids will want something different. But actually the market does not operate in that fashion. So it was that thinking which has worked in the West, and we started this experiment in Jumbo King of applying the same thought process to Indian products. And today you will see Jumbo King as a brand is recognized all over the country.
Due to the franchise model, you're not just creating employment, you're also creating entrepreneurs in return. Tell us, what are the challenges one faces in this kind of a model?
See, each franchisee who comes in, he invests a very small amount of money into starting the franchise, but he feels that he owns the brand now. And each of them come with their own way and their own style of how the business should be conducted. So I think the biggest challenge for anybody, for us and for anybody who starts a franchise business is, how do you channelize that energy? And how do you, get those inputs and put in certain filters where the person needs to be educated of why some things are possible and some things are not.
Jumbo King has a menu which has regional dishes combined with vada paos, which make them very unique in the market. How was this ideated?
So innovation for us is something which we get ideas from our franchisees, from our manufacturers. And one thing we realize is that there is no harm in trying. The worst that can happen is it will fail. But if we keep on trying a lot of products, there will be some products which are going to do well. And I think it is the success of the first, so the Shezwan Jumbo King that we did, that gives us the confidence to go ahead and today launch a Chole Jumbo King and a Dal Makhani Jumbo King. So these are ridiculous ideas, but the fact is people are loving those products. They are having those products, they are coming back again and again for those products, and they are probably loving Jumbo King for doing all of these things.
Though many may continue having heated arguments over deciding India's food capital, here Jumbo King brings together the best of all cities tucked inside sliced buns.
With that is a wrap on this edition of Leaders of Tomorrow. Do remember, you can write in to us at leadersoftomorrow@timesgroup.com, reach us on social media using the hashtag LOT, or call us on the number which is on your screen. Thanks for watching. Good night.